You're showing that news 18 clipping.
जय श्री राम दोस्तों, अपने भारत मार्ग चैनल में आपके लिए सुस्वागतम स्वागतम। और विनय जी, थैंक यू फॉर ज्वाइनिंग अगेन इन भारत मार्ग, अप्रिशिएट इट हाईली। दोस्तों, आज का खबर बहुत विशेष है। बहुत सारे लोग हमें संपर्क करते हैं कि वी वांट टू कम टू कनाडा, वी वांट टू कम इन द स्टूडेंट वीसा, वी वांट टू कम इन विजिटर वीसा। देन if you or your family or friends coming to Canada, you must watch this video for sure. Okay, warning: many Indian students and youngsters dying in Canada in a disproportionate proportion. Okay, we will talk about it. ये funeral ground rings alarm कि ऐसा हो रहा है कि इंडियन बच्चे हैं जो इतना ऐसा मर जाते हैं कि बहुत ज्यादा हो रहा है हर महीना। Okay, so we will talk about it. We have Vinay Ji with us, who is going to expose exactly and explain इधर क्या हो रहा है कनाडा में, क्यों इतना इंडियन बच्चे मरते हैं इधर, और इंटरनेशनल स्टूडेंट का इतना हालत क्यों खराब है, ये सब हम बात करेंगे। बट बिफोर गोइंग फर्दर फ्रेंड्स, प्लीज अपने चैनल को, इस वीडियो को लाइक करें, कमेंट करें, शेयर करें, जितना भी लोगों तक पहुंच पाए, क्योंकि ये जानकारी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है कि लोग जो भी इधर आना चाहते हैं, जो आ रहे हैं, जो जिसका रिश्तेदार बच्चे इधर आते हैं, उनको ये वीडियो जरूर देखना चाहिए। इसलिए जितना लोगों से शेयर कर सकें प्लीज शेयर कीजिएगा। एंड ऑल्सो हमारा हर दिन का एक धार्मिक मैसेज आती है, उसको पाने के लिए आप हमें हमारा व्हाट्सएप में +16479644790 नंबर में हमसे मैसेज जोड़ के हमसे जुड़े, और आप और आपका परिवार सनातन की जड़ से जुड़े रहें और लाभ पाए, ये ही अपना विनती है। तो विनय जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, स्वागतम आपके लिए भारत मार्ग चैनल में। ये क्या हो रहा है? भारत जो बच्चे हैं, यंगस्टर्स हैं, इधर इतना मरते हैं। फ्यूनरल होम वार्निंग देता है कि ये कुछ गलत हो रहा है इधर। मेंटल प्रॉब्लम भी बहुत सारा रिपोर्टिंग हो रहा है। क्या हो रहा है इधर विनय जी?
Thank you, Ji. Yeah, it's very unfortunate that I heard a news item about this lady by the name Narinder Kaur of Punjab, and this lady was grieving on Business Today, this newspaper, and she was telling about how tragic it was to see her son, who she had sent with a lot of hopes and aspirations to Canada to study and become something, and hopefully later on he would be able to sponsor them. But then she received a news from through a friend or something of this gentleman by name Gurvinder Nath, and he was killed in a violent carjacking in Canada. Okay, so and the person Gurvinder had succumbed to so basically he had succumbed to the carjacking, the violence, and died later. And Gurvinder's mother, after hearing about her son's death, she died as a result of depression. Okay, so it is becoming crazy, basically, that the double tragedy left the family in Punjab's Nawanshahar district, extremely in a bad situation. And Gurvinder Nath was only 24-year-old, and he was a student, and he was a pizza delivery agent to kind of make some money as a student, right? I mean, obviously, as an international student coming into Canada, the fees that you're paying is almost 3 to 4 times more than what the domestic students pay, and it's a huge business for the Canadian universities and colleges. The total apparently the cost of education, the education that's especially the international student, that is almost a $39 billion industry, okay, in Canada. and it's a huge thing for the Canadian universities and colleges. And unfortunately, it's like, the students who come in, they're finding it extremely difficult to survive in Canada as a result of the fees, as a result of the cost of living, and so many things. And so they have to work, and they're exploited. And now we are hearing about uh, a lot of deaths that's happening with these, especially with the international students. And it's unfortunate. So I have some statistics for you.
Mhm.
So the statistics that has come out is that 5 to 8 bodies on an average, okay, 5 to 8 bodies of Indian students in Canada are sent back to India. Mortal remains of these 5 to 8 people who died, and their mortal remains are expatriated back to India every month. Every month, 5 to 8 bodies.
Wow.
So you can imagine like the high number of deaths of Indian youth in Canada over the past few years, not just 1 or 2 months, past few years, has been flagged by funeral homes in Ontario's Greater Toronto area. And I'll quote one of the funeral homes director, Harminder Hansi, the funeral director at Lotus Funeral Home in Etobicoke, mentioned that we send almost 4 bodies a month, sometimes one
Wow.
or two. It's an ongoing issue. Okay, so it's basically, this is a crazy thing. There are deaths, and when we send the bodies, I hardly recall anything where any student in that age group died of some natural cause of death. They're either due to accident and so many other things, and we can get into that
And also, and also one more question, if you can cover this also. Okay, you said about many of them are accidents, are violent crashes, violent things, attacks in Canada. Okay, keeping that aside, and one more thing is, they're also saying that a lot of people get mental disorder, mental this thing. And
exactly.
you have done before that many students, especially the girls, are pushed into prostitution. Okay, who come here for studying in Canada, they do open prostitution, drugs into it. So does these also plays a role? We'd like to know from you,
Oh,
Vinay.
absolutely, because drugs is a huge part. Okay, so the drug peddlers, okay, they don't want to obviously be caught in the middle of any of this, so they have a huge network. So they catch hold of these innocent students in India, coming from India. They kind of have touts, going around these colleges, the campuses, and stuff like that, and they pretty much engage them in a conversation and ask them about their ground reality, right? Like, how are you doing? What are you doing? And blah blah blah, and they befriend them and get to know them, and then they come to know that these kids are literally living a very pathetic life. I know in Canada, in Brampton, in BC, in many other parts of in the country, um, people like students are living like in dozens in a house. So basically, they go to a landlord and they say, "Oh, we are going to take this house for rent." And the landlord is, assuming like, maybe the three students who have approached him are the ones who are going to occupy the house because it's a three-bedroom house. And then he rents the house to these three students, and guess what happens? These three students sublet it to another three students, and those guys sublet it to another three students, and eventually about 20 to 30, 40 people sometimes live in a house.
Wow.
So now these people are mainly struggling to find a job because they want to live the Canadian life, right? They want good clothes, they want the brand name clothes, they want the brand name shoes, they want their brand name handbags and backpacks and all that stuff, and the laptops and computers and everything, right? So what do they do now? They have to show to their other colleagues and friends that they also have some money, because the problem
And
is,
they had to send pictures to India.
exactly, and they also have to send pictures to in India to their
Instagram,
parents.
Insta it.
to
Yep.
their caregivers, saying that, oh, we are doing really well in Canada. But the thing is, when they come to Canada, their parents would have probably sold their land, sold their house, sold their jewelry, sold their property, whatever it is, to send their kid to Canada in the hope that the kid would actually make good progress and eventually get their family to immigrate to Canada. But and so they come with very, very minimal resources, okay, minimum funding, just enough to cover their maybe their first semester of their college fees, and probably about 3 to 6 months of their rental and whatever living expenses. But when they come here, they have so much difficulty surviving. They take on any jobs. So when these stouts approach these kids,
Legal or illegal?
exactly. When these stouts approach them and say, "Hey, listen, all you need to do is take this package and go and give it to that person at this particular address, and I'll give you $10." What is the harm, right?
And
Small
they don't
package.
even get a $10 in a working for an hour here most of the
Exactly.
time.
So it's hardly like 20 minutes of their time. All they need to do is take the package, put it in their handbag or backpack, and walk to that place or take a bus to that place, and they may spend about $1 or $2 on it, but they make $8, like less than half hour. So they say, yeah, sure, we'll do it, and then guess what? They don't know that that package carries drugs. They're carrying drugs and stuff like that, and
And
then
and
and then guess what they do? These stouts actually give them some freebies. They say, hey, listen, I got something for you. Why don't you try this tablet? Why don't you try this, this powder? And then they get them hooked up into addictions and stuff like that. And once they get addicted, because they're already depressed about all their life, right? They kind of get into a little kind of at least some momentary feeling, happiness and whatever, right? So they start getting into drugs, and then now the talks basically come to them and say, hey, deliver this package and I'll give you a small quantity of this powder, and they do it. And
and
once they do that, then you know what, they get hooked up into it, and
and
then
and
the next
and
thing is
Vinayji,
prostitution.
one thing I want to bring it to your attention, if you can cover this also. Okay, I don't know if I have the picture. If I have it, I'll show it. Actually, one of the Congress MPs, okay, one of the Congress MPs, Ramneet Singh Bittu, he was saying in the Lok Sabha that many of the gurudwaras here in Canada are owned by terrorists, and Nijar himself, who was shot dead in the gang rivalry or whatever, or as per the credible allegation from Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, it was done by Indian Raw, whatever the case is, it is said that it was a drug fight. Okay, so these the so-called the worship places many times act as the hub of a lot of illegal things, if you can.
Oh yeah, the other thing that goes on is
And they get free
also,
food there.
yeah, they
Yeah.
get free food, and they also get brainwashed in the gurudwaras. Okay, and basically what happens is they go to gurudwaras, and people take them to gurudwaras, and they get brainwashed there, and they get radicalized, and basically they kind of say, hey, listen, you should become part of Khalistan, and we'll give you $5, we'll give you $10, you come and vote in the referendum, and this and that and whatever, right? So they show huge lineups and stuff like that, but half of them are either Indian students in Canada, or half of them are retired people who have nothing else to do but just come and make some $5 just to stand in a line or whatever. And this is what's going on here, and it's extremely unfortunate that people are falling prey to this. And and then I was talking about prostitution, right? So what happens with the girls, a person approaches her and befriends her, and then he starts basically knowing about her and hanging out with her and all that, and then they become boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and eventually he basically has some relationship with her, and then he comes to know about her parents. He starts talking to her parents when they were
And they have some
young,
secret pictures also now in the hand.
pictures and
So
stuff like that. Now he starts blackmailing her, and he says, hey, listen, I'm going to send all these to your parents. And she says, oh, no, no, please don't do that. And in that case, then you go and sleep with this guy and sleep with that guy and things like that, right? So now this is unfortunate, and this is what's happening. And they get into prostitution, and they get into prostitution. The bulk of the money, let's say they're charging about $200, right? The bulk of the money goes to this man, this tout, this pimp or whoever, and the only a small portion that goes to the girl. And this is extremely bad what's happening, and very unfortunate. And so people are getting depressed. They're kind of overdosing on drugs, and just they want to either commit suicide, or they're into violent attacks, or they are basically, because they're radicalized and stuff like that, they get into gang wars and stuff like that. So there are many reasons why the students are getting killed and losing their lives and stuff like that, precious lives, and young lives, precious lives. And they are coming into Canada without any knowledge of this, and the parents are so desperate. Like now, Canadian government has become so desperate that they opened up something called as a minor visa. Okay. In the past, you should be at least over 17 or 18 to come into Canada to study to do your undergrad and or college. But now you have minor visas where kids as young as 3-year-old, 4-year-old can immigrate to Canada on visa, student visa, and they can study here. And because they are minors, they are allowed to bring their kids, I mean their parents and their siblings too. So where is Canada going with this? I mean, like when we moved to Canada, right? I came on point system, and I
Right.
came legally, and it was like a big thing for us to come in through the proper channels and stuff like that. But now it's become a haven for terrorists, extremists, separatists, and all kinds of pro Hamas and all these kind of people. And it's becoming a crazy scene here in Canada. It's very unfortunate, and yeah, this is the fate of Canada. And now you're seeing students dying left, right, and center.
But let it put together in a final stretch. So more students and more youngsters. It's not only students; it's youngsters. They say after pandemic, it has increased a lot. Too much it has become. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
just
Because what has happened is the cost of living has gone up. Okay. And you got to keep in mind that people who have regular jobs, both husband and wife have jobs, who have been living in Canada for number of years, those people are also struggling. Those people are actually, even though they have two incomes, they actually go to the food bank in the evenings to pick up some food, some extra food. Yesterday, I mean, like just 2 days ago, I was at a grocery store, and outside the grocery store, when you enter, right, they have a big bin where people can pick up some package, some stuff
nothing
that
in
donated, right?
it.
And I saw at least about 3 or 4 people picking up things from there. And I thought maybe they were putting things in, but they were actually picking up things. They came there, they picked up stuff from this from that bin, and they loaded up in their car and they left because they don't have money to feed their kids. So this is, and they're driving a car. Imagine the fate of the students who have no steady income. They are only allowed to work 20 hours a week legally. Okay. So obviously they've got to work or do other things, other means of income, or generate other means of income, right? And this is unfortunate. And so they are struggling. And when they're unable to make ends meet, what do? They commit suicide. They go into drugs. They go and get into depression and stuff like that.
Wow. So violent death is more happening, or because of the mental health problem more is happening?
I think it's a balance of both, but I think it's more mental health, because based on the statistics that I've seen, it's more mental health issues, and it's basically kids are unable to cope with the stress here, cope with they're not unable to kind of blend into the system. So this is what's happening, and they're seeing some of their peers, like who are actually Canadians, who born brought up here, right? I mean, they have parents who can afford them a Nike shoes and an Adidas T-shirt and a fancy hat and stuff like that. But these kids are the Indian kids who are coming in. They're unable to cope because, first of all, they don't have the language skills. Secondly, they don't have the accent. Thirdly, they can't afford those kind of fancy clothes, and all this. And fourthly, they can't even afford a square meal a day, right? So when the kids, next they see some of these kids going to some of the fancy restaurants for lunch, or Tim Hortons, or even McDonald's, or any of those restaurants. These kids can't even afford a cookie in their bag. So now what do? So they see all of this happening around them, and they feel extremely bad, upset, because they are unable to do what the other kids are doing. Some of the other kids are doing who actually can afford it. So what do these
Absolutely.
guys do? They want to make some extra money, and to
Absolutely.
make that extra money, they fall prey to all these, you know,
Absolutely. I
issues.
I just want to, healthy life harmony says excellent video, very informative. Thank you very much. And I want to give my last word on it. Okay. Many times people message us saying, "Oh, you are giving the bad news. Vinay ji is giving bad news." But I talked to so and so consultant. They say it is all rosy there. Don't trust them. I'll say what, folks. Whether you come here to Canada or don't come, okay, we are not going to make a single penny. Me or Vinayji, we are not immigration consultant. Okay, we care for our children, folks. We care for our children. I'll recommend you to go to Canada News playlist. Vinayji had made a umpty of videos there regarding the student life, regarding the youngsters who come here and get tricked, and how their mental health, they lose their mental health, character, everything. Okay, you must see those videos, and we will highly recommend you to see it if you or your family member are coming to Canada before that, and know it, and then come. Then you don't need to say, "Oh, I didn't know." Okay, that's what my last word is. But thank you, Vinayji, for coming and pouring your heart, and appreciate it very, very highly. uh, this is a great service what you are doing. Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Okay,
it.
looking forward to see you again. Till then, folks, Jai Sri Krishna, Jai Jai Sri Krishna.